creating like a project from like the examples where we can use, for example, the Shipyard from Sockshop, which is like this one. So we have multiple stages in here with multiple sequences, and we can just Keptn create project. Then we just name it Sockshop. And then after some waiting time, we see the project has been created successfully. And if we look at the logs of the provisioning service, it also tells us that the demo Sockshop project we have created was created on the upstream Git repository. And if you have a look at the management interface of Git, we can also see all the actions that have been performed. So the admin user has created the project in the Git instance, and then all the commits that were created while provisioning can be seen here. As a side note, you can also configure and customize a little bit here in the provisioning service. So we can append username prefixes, configure email domains, project prefixes, and token prefixes. So it's really customizable and also easily extendable, since if you just want to add your own provisioning service, you just have to extend this interface and then create the provisioning handler with that instance, and then you can easily switch from Git to GitHub, GitLab, or any other provider you choose to implement. And thank you. That was the demo from my part. So if there are no other questions, I would hand the word to, I think, Paolo.
Quick question. Is this like creating a repository and then using an app in response to Keptn, or is this creating new users, or what is going on in the background?
In this case, as it's currently configured, we are using the admin user to create a project for a specific user, like the Keptn user, which is configurable and also can depend on the namespace that the Keptn instance tells us. So if there is a namespace set like Keptn 1 or Keptn 2, then the appropriate user is created and then also used. And per repository, a single access token is currently created. So it's somewhat in a secure setting.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. Then now I'm handing the word to Paolo.
Hello. Does my microphone work? First thing.
Yes.
Mic check. Good. Okay. I will just be brief as much as I can, at least. So let me just share my screen. Okay. Related to what Giovanni talked about earlier, the fact that the Keptn install command is being deprecated, we already had a GitHub action that we use for installing Keptn on a K3S for our integration test for job executor service, Prometheus service, and Keptn service template. So we basically released a new version that now uses Helm to install Keptn directly. Couple of notable changes compared to the previous version that used a Keptn install. First thing, if you don't specify a Keptn version, you're going to get the latest, whatever latest means in our Helm repository, before you had to specify a given version. Second thing, before we had some specific input, now we replace those input to customize your Keptn installation with the full lists of Helm values that you want passed as YAML. So if you see basically in this README, now we have an input that is called Helm values. That's the default, the one that's displayed there. So we usually, if you don't say anything, install a Keptn with the endpoint of type load balancer. But if you have some sort of customization, whatever it is, I think Christian already did something for the Git provisioner in some of our CI workflows. Well, okay, you have to basically pass all the values you want to override there. As for the output, the difference compared to previous thing is we kind of clarify and split the two endpoint that you're going to get. So after you successfully manage to install Keptn, you're going to get how to reach Keptn just for the HTTP endpoint, first output here, right? Or what is the actual Keptn API URL you can use to interact with it. We kind of need this for our integration test use cases. As for the usage, well, much aside from the inputs, and we are already using them, for example, for job executor service integration. You can see it here. Basically, at some point, we call the Keptn sandbox action install Keptn version 2. We don't pass anything special, so this is the default that will get applied. And then once we get the Keptn installed, we can use the output for testing the connection and then configuring job executor service to talk to the control plane correctly. Yeah, so that's about it. This is the really simple way of doing it because we're not passing much there. Yeah, this is more or less it. I don't have a live demo for you because, well, an integration test run takes a little bit longer and wouldn't be probably that interesting. Are there any question? Yeah.
I was just going to say I agree. I have also not a live demo, but I will be using your actions. So
okay. Cool. Then I'll leave the word to the next presenter.
Thank you.
And
That
also
would be me. So I'm already capitalizing on what Paolo and Rafael have done. So I'm working on getting Job Executor compatible with Keptn 0.16, and it's not so much a work to get Job Executor compatible, but to actually get our integration test screen. And with that, I'm already capitalizing on the new Git provisioner that Rafael has written. So you can also use Job Executor service or the integration tests of the Git provisioner service as a starting point if you want to do your own. We basically generate a password for every run. We install Git, same as Rafael has shown in his README. We then install the provisioner directly from the Git release, from the provisioner release on GitHub. And what I now capitalize on is Paolo's change in the action, because I can now just add Helm values where I select, okay, my control plane should have an API gateway with type load balancer, and I want to activate the automatic provisional URL feature of Keptn, which I'm doing here. And so, yeah, here I'm already capitalizing on those two things. And it's really simple, actually. So with that, I managed to get my integration test screen. I mean, we have a big test matrix here, but I'm going to the very far right where you can see the test with Keptn 0.16, and you can see a lot of green check marks here. So yeah, thanks a lot for the effort with the provisioner service, and with the action, I was immediately able to use them. Any questions? All right, then I only have a quick announcement. So we found an issue with Prometheus service, which is described on GitHub already. I've linked it here in case anyone is interested. The latest Prometheus service release is incompatible with the current Alert Manager release of Prometheus. We're working on a fix as of right now, or specifically Rafael is working on a fix. Just leaving this out there in case you have the latest version of Prometheus service, you might run into some incompatibilities. If you need help with that, please hit us up on the Keptn Slack in the Keptn Integrations channel. All right, with that, I'm handing over to Florian.
All right, thank you. Here we go. First check, do you hear me? Perfect. Okay, so two issues or two pull requests I want to talk about today. So the first one is about the Shipyard controller and our integration tests. So previously we had quite a lot of test cases in the integration tests that were testing functionalities of the Shipyard controller, specifically like how it's handling the execution of a sequence in certain cases. So for example, what happens if you trigger a sequence, then pause that, then trigger another sequence, then it checks if the other sequence will correctly be executed, if the other one has paused, and stuff like that. And the problem was that within the integration test, we always had this overhead where we first create a project, upload all the resources, and trigger the sequences, and poke around in the API to check whether the sequences have reached the desired state. And this was taking quite some time. And since we recently introduced a nuts component into the Shipyard controller where we directly connect to nuts, and we also have this capability in place where we can test our MongoDB implementations using the in-memory MongoDB implementation within the Shipyard controller. All those things kind of allowed us to move those integration tests that I just mentioned to the Shipyard controller tests or to component tests and execute them here. And this proved to be quite effective. So I think we moved around 15 or so test cases from the integration tests to the component tests. And that saved us around 25 minutes in the execution time of the integration test. And within the component tests, all those test cases are executed within 2 minutes or so. So it's luckily quite a bit of improvement and will allow us to get faster feedback.
Florian, quick question. Are those tests executed within the unit tests, or is there like a separate step now to execute component
they're
tests?
right now executed as part of the unit tests. So in Go, you don't have this really clear separation of unit and component tests, but they're executed.
That's why I'm asking. Yeah. Okay, so that's fine. Thanks.
All right. Okay, then the next one. So this was about some common modules that we use in Keptn and also provide. So recently we introduced 3 new modules, so which are the CP common, the CP connector, and the Go SDK, which were previously located as separate Go modules within our Keptn core repository. And having these separated kind of led to a complicated dependency management because, for example, the Go SDK depended on the CP connector. The CP connector was depending on the CP common, and also I think each of those was depending on the Go Utils, which made updating dependencies of each of those modules quite a bit pain in the behind and not very fun. And that's why we decided to take all of these 3 modules and move them into the Go Utils. So now, in order to make use of those, you only need to import the Go Utils, and they're part of the same version. I'm not going to go through the code right now because it's a lot of code. But we do have a ticket for creating extensive documentation, which will then be made available by the README of the Go Utils module. Any questions about that? If not, I will hand over to Moritz.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so in the last sprint, I mostly worked on our Helm charts, and I did major refactoring there. It's actually split into 2 BRs. So when we open this first one here, this is actually a combined branch of several pull requests that were done by multiple people, actually, by the community and also by myself. And basically, we did some major refactoring. There were 2 charts before that were kind of combined to result in the Keptn chart, the control plane, and the continuous delivery chart. Those were merged together into one. And then also there's some new features. You can customize all the resource limits and requests for all different services in Keptn now, directly from the Helm values. And we also introduced a common chart to kind of contain all of our helper functions that are commonly used in Helm service, JMeter service, and also the Keptn main chart. So this was kind of a big combined PR. And with this also, some of the Helm values changed again. So this continuous delivery, this was basically refactoring to adhere to Helm's standard syntax for namings. And then also the control plane value, the root value kind of was removed since Keptn is the whole control plane anyways. So we kind of don't need that anymore, and it's also always enabled. So yeah, there were some changes in the values. We will write an extensive upgrade guide regarding this, so that upgrades should go smoothly. Yeah. And then there was also some follow-ups for this. I had to revert some parts of it again. We changed some immutable labels, which is of course not what we wanted. So this is already merged. That should be fine. It's also going to be released with CO17. And we also had to change something in the common chart again. We kind of used the same names as Bitnami used in their common chart. And since we do use MongoDB from Bitnami, which in turn uses this common chart, we had some naming collisions where MongoDB all of a sudden used our common chart instead of Bitnami's. So we kind of prefixed our helpers with Keptn now, so that this is not the case anymore. Yeah, so that's that. As I said, I will write an extensive upgrade guide so that all the Helm values that kind of changed are nicely documented and you can easily update them. And that's it from me. And I'm handing over to Andre.
Thank you. I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully you are seeing it. So, yeah, most of the last sprint was binded to 3 issues. The first one is, which I already mentioned in the last sprint review, and it's regarding the new Git Credentials Model. We decided to refactor the API model for storing Git credentials to not have this flat hierarchy structure, but have it more like a substructure hierarchy, which with HTTPS SSH options to authenticate to the Git upstream and to have it kind of nicely ordered what's actually binded to which part. So this was recently merged, and of course this is a breaking change. So if users want to create or update their projects, they need to, and with using the newest 0.17 release, they will need to also update the request bodies for the creating and updating projects, and also the response body for retrieving the project will be modified. So please be aware of these changes. The modifications were made in Go Utils and also in the Keptn core repositories.
Quick question there. What
Yes.
happens if I upgrade my Keptn installation from 0.16 to 0.17? Is this taken care of?
Yes, the update actually contains a migrator which migrates the credentials from the old Git model to the newer one. So only the new one is used. It actually migrates the project and also the secret Git credentials. So everything should work as smoothly and without any other additional actions from the users.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, so the second issue which we decided as a team was the Kubernetes Utils deprecation. This is actually a dependency which we were using in the Keptn core and also other services. Yeah, we decided, we went through the methods which were stored in the Kubernetes utils and decided whether the method is used for the tests, they were moved to the tests. If they were used only by the Helm service, they were moved to the Helm service. And if they were using, if they were used by multiple services, they were moved to the Go Utils, where in the Go Utils, the methods were refactored, covered by tests. So it became more clear, more testable. The code quality is bigger. So please, if the community is using Kubernetes utils, please be aware that this module is already deprecated and it won't be updated anymore. And please move to the dependency which actually contains the required methods which you are using. Yeah, and last issue was a bug fix regarding the Shipyard controller events filter. Quick demo, we received a bug where actually with such a simple Shipyard, when the property triggered after is used, it works like that the task is triggered after a 1 minute sleep or a 1 minute timeout. But the retriever of the triggered events didn't work as expected because it was retrieving also a triggered event which will be triggered in the future. So, for example, after 1 minute. So we needed to introduce a new property to the event filter, which is the time, and we are filtering also at the time. This fix is not a breaking change. It's just an internal structure update, so it shouldn't affect the end users from any other, just that the triggered events are retrieved after the events are really retrieved and not that they are only planned to be retrieved. Yeah, that's basically everything from my side. Are there any additional questions? Silence means no, so I'm handing over to Klaus.
Thanks. Let me share the screen. Okay. So for a bridge side, we also updated the Git model for updating and creating a project. So as Andre already told, the model changed for the creation of a project. And the bridge now also uses this one for creating a project. And also we have a limitation there. If the resource service is not used here, the bridge will show an error because this new format is only supported by a resource service. And yeah, just to let you know. So yeah, the bridge now uses this new model and yeah, that's basically it. The next thing is we removed the show remediation config button because we realized this is never in use. Nobody uses it, and yeah, we just remove it. And yeah, this also saves as one API call for the screen. And yeah, so this config is now not displayed anymore. The next thing that we worked on was to support the new webhook format, because the format was changed to a better one, let's say. Because for the requests, we only had one string, so one curl command. And this was also a lot of parsing from bridge side and from core side. And now we decided to split it and make it more readable, more nice, let's say. So for example, the curl command is now split into URL, into method, and also into headers and options if you have additional ones, like for example, proxy. So yes, the bridge now uses this new model, and if there is an update to webhook.yaml, the bridge decides which version it is. If it is the old version, it migrates to the new one, and only the new one is then saved. Yeah, that's basically it. So yeah, that's from my side. Are there any questions? If not, then I will hand over to Anna. You are still muted.
Anna tried to use the system microphone and not the Jabra one. Looks like it doesn't work with this tool.
I think she's muted in the browser.
I don't know.
Now it works.
Okay. Sorry, all the time I should not use my headphones. Can you see my screen? Not anymore. Yeah, sharing. So, as was mentioned by Giovanni, we had deprecated the install, uninstall, and upgrade commands. We did a soft deprecation, so this means that all the flags of the command are still available, just you will see a nice deprecated message at the beginning of each command when you call it. That will point you to the docs where we explain to you how to do the corresponding Helm command for the install, uninstall, and whatnot. Also, this has been removed from the help, so all those commands are not listed anymore. What else? Two tiny things. One thing is concerning the automatic provisioning. So we used to have automatic provisioning URL and automatic provisioning message in two different parts in our charts. And now they have been moved in a way that they are all under the automatic provisioning value, under feature. So this is a breaking change that I already see it will mess up with some of the contribution we have seen today. Please don't hate me. Nothing much more to say about this one. And another tiny change is we added the possibility to configure in the chart the API HTTP timeout. This value was already available in the distributor. It was just not passed via the Helm chart. So now it is possible to do it with a set. Then another thing regards the Go SDK. So basically, Go SDK is thing for integration. But before we had it set up in a way that basically only if the integration was inside the control plane, it could actually get resources, because there was no other way to authenticate. And how we changed this is that we have added a Keptn interface that you can get from the SDK. And the Keptn interface, according to what you have configured, if you have or not endpoint which is external, will do two things. Either it will give you the API from the internal, or it will give you an external API, and then all of the resources and logger and everything else in the Keptn API is available like that. Eventually, we will also deprecate the resource handler so that you can get the resources directly through the Keptn interface. But right now we cannot do so because resource handler implements some new functions that are used in the research service, and those are not part of the API interface. Finally, there was a bug related to deleting project. So if the user would remove the upstream from their project, which is feasible currently, then he would not be able to delete the project anymore. And that is because the ordering in which we were deciding whether or not the call to the delete was successful was a bit messed up. So right now, this step of trying to delete from our local research service the project information is the last one. So we still have a failure if we cannot do that, but the rest of the project is deleted. While working on this bug, I also figured out that we had a very similar issue with the deletion of the remote automatic provisioner. So basically, before we were checking whether or not we could delete the remote repository, and if that would fail, then we would not delete the project, which is a problem because if for any reason the remote provisioner is not available or it's giving an error, then we will never be able to delete the project. So now we are not failing, but just logging this information so that the provisioner can react to this. I think that's more or less it. If there are no questions, I
have a question. What's happening to pages for install, uninstall, and update? Are they going or upgrade? Are they going to just marked as deprecated, or are they being deleted?
The pages have been updated with the command being deprecated, and in the next version, I guess we will remove them.
For the documentation side, Meg, the CLI reference documentation part will not have anymore the install, uninstall commands available. But for the installation of Keptn documentation part, then we change everything to support the user to use Helm to install Keptn.
If we were going to keep, if somebody goes looking for, the install, they're just going to find nothing. They won't to give them a hint. The reference pages.
No, they would be totally removed.
I can see arguments to go either way. Yeah. So if they go into the o.16.x those reference pages, but yeah, not 17.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, that works. I just wanted to know what's going on. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Then
I think next is Bernd.
Thanks. So, yeah, you should see my screen. I'm just talking about one issue I've taken care of in the last sprint, which is about the CP connector. As you know, or probably know, the CP connector is already used for a couple of components on the Keptn control plane, and it's able to talk to Keptn directly, for example, for getting events or subscribing to events and so on, using nuts directly. And the next thing was to also cover the remote execution plane for the CP connector, which basically just mean that the event source interface should have a second implementation, which is basically talking to the Keptn event API instead of talking to nuts. So what that PR actually contains is exactly that, second implementation for the event source, sorry, which is HTTP based. And actually it also contains other things I also just made on the fly and added it in the pull request. There are some improvements with regard to gracefully shutting down the CP connector component and some code restructurings without adding a feature. So what that actually means is, as Florian already told you, the CP connector is now living in Go utils, also the Go SDK. Sorry, which is a good thing. There will be extensive documentation in the README how to use the CP connector alone or the Go SDK later on. That's not part yet, but what that means in the scope of that ticket with the remote execution plane use case is that if we quickly go through, nothing actually changed. You create your API. You can also choose what logger you want to use. You create your subscription source. And here's the other thing you can do now. Instead of creating an event source that is NUTS based, you create an event source that is HTTP based. You give it basically the API of the control plane in the form of the Shipyard control plane v1 interface and the API interface. And that's basically it. So with one line here, you're able to use the library on a remote execution plane instead of in Keptn core. That's the first thing. And also with regard to gracefully shut down, you can decide, you can either start a control plane component manually via control plane.register, or you can directly use the helper method, which is called run with graceful shutdown. It takes the control plane, takes care of everything, also takes your service implementation, as well as a timeout, which just says, okay, if I'm not able to gracefully shut down within 10 seconds in this case, then I will just exit. That's also something new with this pull request. Other than that, as I said, the documentation and how to use this all exactly will be published in the README, I think, of the Go utils. I think there's a question.
Quick question there, Bernd.
Yes.
This means I no longer need the distributor, right?
Yes, that's all working without the distributor. I can even start it here.
Perfect.
And it's working.
I
pretty.
did my maintenance ticket for that. Thanks.
You're welcome. Good then. I think there's another tiny ticket. I don't know. I think should we discuss it? Maybe yes. I think Christian, while you were speaking, I think that comes from your direction with the OAuth issue, where the problem was, I think, if you were previously connected via OAuth authentication and that thing, timed out or not timed out. How do you say, doesn't have the right credentials anymore and so on. And when you then try to log out using Keptn out --o out logout, then it actually tried to contact the Keptn control plane again by doing a version check, which obviously doesn't work anymore because your credentials of the OAuth are not valid anymore. And this triggered the authorization code flow of OAuth again, which is basically just not what you wanted to do. The very, very simple fix for that is, and that we've discussed as a team, that we just disable. So there was already a function which was deciding whether to do the version check or not. And we just said, okay, let's just skip the version check when you're hitting the auth command of the CLI, and do not have that problem in the future again. That's basically it. Good. I think there will be a follow-up ticket for this as well, where you can also decide then when you want to log out that it also automatically wipes or asks you whether it should wipe the local OAuth configuration from installation or not. But that's maybe going to be discussed in the one of the next developer meetings. I think that's from my side. If there are no questions, I think I was the last one. No, Meg is still in the row. Then please, Meg.
Sorry. And let's see if I can share my screen. I've had trouble before. It's not letting me share my screen. Can somebody else on the agenda, the higher numbered PR that's there, does somebody else want to share and just put that up there? The big news is that I've attempted to move all of the installation section. Kind of bad timing. We're doing this in preparation for migrating the docs to the new doc engine. And this release has so many changes to installation, I had to do it to you now. And I apologize. But so as you're updating the docs for installation, they're all going to be in the 017 tree. You will find doc/installation or install is the path to find that. The big thing, we've pulled everything in there and we're playing with the model. So feel free, the more opinions we have on it, the better it will be. There's some I still don't like in there, but the other to deal with is what was becoming really clear from the messages posted in the help was that people trying to do their first project were using one of the old tutorials because it was the place where they had a list of what they had to do. So those old tutorials, I think, are on release 0.11. And of course, they were written to be sort of a happy path. None of the nasty stuff mentioned. We just use load balancer. We just do this and nothing more. So it doesn't work. So tempted to create just a that you can see. You have to do this, and then you have to do this, and then you have to do this. This is my best crack at it. This is my best second crack. So please look at that. All the feedback or fix what you want to. And let me know. Have time while you're upgrading things. Whatever piece of document you're working on, if you could take extra 5 minutes to turn off everything in your brain that you know and see if everything there would make sense if you were a novice to Keptn. I think there are some issues complicated. So that is my current thing. You guys are going to deal with updating the information, but if anybody needs any help at all, don't hesitate to ping me. I'm here. That's all.
I have a question about this actually.
Okay.
From this PR, I think I see that the install section is actually next to 017 and not inside. Is that intended?
Yes.
Okay.
We with the new, as I said, we're gonna be messy for a month or two. When I started working on it, I thought we might have the doc engine up by 17. That's not going to happen. But in the new doc engine, we will have the concept, and we will not have the separate trees showing on the screen. When you open the docs, you'll get latest, and then there will be a menu where you can choose one of the older releases. But it will mean if I set for a page in the docs in 17, that bookmark will still work in 18 and 19 and 20, etc. You'll just keep getting the newer stuff unless you specify.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Then I guess I will put the upgrade instructions into this new section and maybe also in the 017 section.
Right. And I'm not sure, I may have made a mistake out of. I'm also, my next step, something similar for the create a project, and I will leave that in the 7. Install got pulled up to the same level as concepts and stuff, and I think we can live with it. It may not be perfect, but it will work.
Very cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we are at the end of the list. Is there any comment in the chat or questions? No? Some more question remarks from the community?
Shivam, have you got enough information to move forth?
I think it's
Hello?
not in the.
Has he left?
I think, yeah. I don't see him in the attendees list.
Okay.
Okay. Then, thanks everyone. Very nice progress. And I wish you a nice rest of the day. See you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Ready?
See you.